We're looking at a couple of interesting books today that are linked, again, separated by hundreds of years, but linked nonetheless. The first one is Utopia, written by Sir Thomas More, who later became St. Thomas More. And Thomas More was a scholar, a writer, later came into public service, meaning King Henry VIII's public service, which was also his undoing. Anyway, he wrote Utopia in 1515 or 1516, and what it is an imagined conversation with a world traveler who, after his travels, sits down and describes to Thomas More, he uses his own name, his various adventures and comparative to medieval England at that time, early modern England at that time, and More, to great effect, contrasts the utopian ideal, and this is where we get the word from, the utopian ideal, against the conditions of the day, which don't at all compare favorably. Utopia has gone into the language, and certainly in the literary language, in the literary canon, we talk about a utopian novel, for instance, being one that describes a veritable paradise. But it has also gone into to describe dystopias, and they today we'll look at some of these. There are a lot to choose from. Of course, societies that are anything but utopian. They're dystopian, they're tyrannical, they are authoritarian, and so on. So Thomas More has given us a lot. This book is a very short book, easily read, still very valid. It was, despite being written in Latin, More could have written it in English, and it was translated later. And of course, my Latin's not so good these days, so I had to read it in English, and as I expect you would too. But it's a short read. It's interesting to see where it all began, and Thomas More makes some points that are still very relevant today and still applicable. Okay, the second book is related to this book, despite being written hundreds of years later in 1933. And the name of the book is The Lost Horizon. The writer is James Hilton, an Englishman, and he does a great job. This is an adventure story written at a time when air travel was just first starting to become popular. It was a story of a crashed airplane, and they landed in uncharted territory somewhere in Tibet. And what they end up doing and surviving and being rescued, they were brought into this this sheltered paradise between the mountains, where they find a people living with humility and grace, and the story revolves around the group protagonists and how they respond to where they are. Eventually, they will leave this land, or some will. They will leave this land and still have. There's still shocking little shocks at the end that will surprise you. But a very well written book, very engaging, takes you right along. And the name of this paradise that they find themselves in is Shangri-La. And that's where the word comes from The Lost Horizon by James Hilton, Shangri-La. So he coined his Shangri-La, and Thomas More coined Utopia. Sort of an interesting connection between the two. But if far more adventure in the latter, the Lost Horizon is still effective after all these years and still enjoyable.